Hey everyone, and welcome back to Mission 1820 and this week's episode of Have You Ever Wondered? If you're just joining us, we are in a brand new series called Books of the Bible, and we are giving introductions into each of the Bible's books in still just 5 minutes or less. So, without further ado, let's get to this week's introduction. The book of Numbers. This is the fourth of the first 5 books of the Old Testament, and they are commonly known by the Jews as the Torah and the Greeks as the Pentateuch. Now, the book is largely considered narrative history, which tells the story of the wandering of the children of Israel in the wilderness for 40 years after their exodus from Egypt. Now, Moses wrote the book between 1450 BC and 1410 BC while recording Israel's movement from the last 20 days at Mount Sinai, their wanderings around Kadesh Barnea, and then finally arriving in the plains of Moab in that 40th year. The book derives its name from the 2 numberings of the Israelites. The first was taken at Mount Sinai in chapter 1. The second was taken on the plains of Moab, which is found in chapter 26. The book itself can be divided into 3 main parts. Part 1 is the preparation of the old generation to inherit the promised land. Now, this covers chapters 1 through chapter 10, verse 10, and takes place at Mount Sinai for 20 days. Part 2, it's the failure of the old generation to inherit the promised land. This is covered in chapter 10, verse 11 through chapter 25, verse 18. This occurs in the wilderness for about 38 years and 10 months. Part 3, this is the preparation of the new generation to inherit the promised land. This is covered in chapters 26 through chapter 36. This takes place in the plains of Moab for 5 months. Now, in the book, the people of Israel continually tested God's patience. He, in turn, tested their endurance and faithfulness. Now, even though the people failed so many times, God still showed his own faithfulness by leading them through the wilderness, by using a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Some of the key people that you're going to read about are going to be Moses and Aaron. You're going to read about Miriam. She's the sister of Moses and Aaron. You'll read about Joshua, who is Moses' assistant. You read about Caleb, Eleazar, and Balaam. You're also going to encounter a number of key places such as Mount Sinai, the wilderness of Paran, Kadesh, Edom, Moab, the plains of Moab, and Gilead. These key places are going to feature some of the major events, and those are going to include the establishment of the second Passover, found in chapter 9, God causing Aaron's rod to bud in chapter 17, and then Joshua being ordained as Moses' successor in chapter 27, and then lastly, Moses leading Israel to war against the Midianites in chapter 31. The book of Numbers essentially bridges the gap between the Israelites receiving the law in Exodus and Leviticus, and then preparing them to enter the promised land in Deuteronomy and Joshua. While the people of Israel initially had faith in God, their faith soon gave way to perpetual rebellion and complaining, and as a result, God's judgment was brought upon them. This ultimately caused a short 11-day journey of roughly 220 miles to expand into a 40-year wandering through the wilderness because of that obedience. Now, I know this was a very brief introduction into the book of Numbers, but hopefully enough to get you started. So God bless, and thanks for watching.